Okay.
Well, I guess I'll ask, hey Lance, how do you feel about, officially opening the meeting?
Tell me what to say, I'll open it up.
Okay. Let's see here.
You're live on YouTube.
Let me open up. Unless you happen to have a printed copy. Okay. Me either. How well you can see that. And, the main thing is you just want to open the meeting stating that, you know, the date and time that we're opening and starting this meeting and that it's a work session. If you'll basically do that, we should be fine. Yeah, good.
All right, good evening, everyone who is here, for a regular meeting. Work session meeting on December 16th, 2020. And we're here to discuss the, PD 27.
And the time is 7:08 p.m.
At 7:08 p.m. And we have a quorum.
And we have a quorum present.
And we have a quorum to proceed.
And now, so that's basically your call to order, so now you can say the work session item. Can you read that? I can make it bigger.
No, that's fine. Yeah, the work session item is we're here to discuss the development plans for the apartments. Plan for PD 27, on approximately 17.1 acres, I think. That's
Yeah.
right. The northwest corner of Red Oak Road and Hickory Creek Road, the city of Red Oak. Case Z 221, requested by Louis Leibowitz. There won't be any votes tonight. This is just discussion.
Thanks.
That should be good.
Yeah, so we've got our technical formalities out of the way. Thank you, Lance. So as staff, we've got sort of a game plan to help guide and provide just sort of some order to the discussion tonight. It is a public meeting, so if we do have the general public listening, they do have a right to be heard. We will just ask, though, that they wait till the appropriate time for us to acknowledge them and to hear them, because we do have a fair amount of information we'd like to get through. So the main goal for tonight is from all the discussion we had, we want to get to having some clear direction moving forward that the P&Z can provide to staff as well as the applicant, may also benefit the property owner, to understand what it is that the city wants. So for the process tonight, what staff is suggesting is we do a little, recap, kind of just show those images and sites quickly that staff had mentioned before, just as a refresher. And then some of the P&Z members sent me some images, so I believe I've got some from Kim and Leroy, maybe someone else. So that way I can share those images here, and that P&Z commissioner can say what they liked or didn't like about the images or anything else they want to say, or the site, anything they have to say about that. And then after that, we'll give the applicant his time to share. I have his images, so he'll tell me which ones he wants me to be showing, but then that way he can talk about his project again and those images and explain. But he'll have at least had a chance to hear a recap of what staff had said at the last meeting. He'll have a chance to have heard what the P&Z was liking or not liking from the stuff that they went and looked at or got images for. And then after that, we'll see if the public is listening and wants to speak and be heard. And then after all that, we can have a final discussion and try to get a sense of direction. And so, in a nutshell, the recap from the last meeting, I would say, is we left it off with the idea of pursuing more a townhouse look, townhouse aesthetic, but not actual townhouses, because the applicant, developer, they're interested in apartments, not actual townhouses, but want that look. But again, to restate, the use is not at issue. The density is not at issue, so we don't want to, again, really more to the benefit for the general public, if anyone's listening and is new to hearing this issue, is that the use of apartments and the density is not something that's at issue. Really, it's all about really the form, the aesthetics, the architecture, site layout, amenities, things of that nature. So, with that said, I'll do a quick recap of what staff had. So, let's minimize this. So, hopefully you can see this okay. So, should be. Is it not sharing?
No, we're just seeing that.
Okay, sorry.
The word out.
So what do you see, John?
Not to process that guy.
This time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's hidden underneath my.
There.
Ben, may I ask a question? This is Willie Franklin speaking.
Yeah.
Or Brian, either or. From what I'm seeing, there are no members of the public on the call.
Is that right, John? Do we have anyone?
Mark,
This- Maybe I just don't see them, but
Mark Irby.
I have not been contacted. I sent out a copy of the agenda to people that I had emails from prior, and we had talked about it at the meeting we were doing this, and then we posted an agenda physically and online, so maybe they'll tune in a little bit later, but.
okay. I just wanted to make sure, considering the concerns that we had from the last
Right.
meeting. Okay.
And guys, Bart Irby is part of CESM.
So some of these first images are images that I found. These are, I got these because I thought that they embodied the intent of some of the comments that, we'd like them to look like townhomes. And these are, I don't know if these are like for rent townhomes or to own townhomes. I have no idea, but they're an attached product. And the reasons I picked some of these is because I thought it embodied the intent of some of the comments. So obviously we're talking about 2 stories. So, in this case, the elements on here is what I was focusing on was, you've got some metal roofs, you've got some shed roofs over front doors, and mixtures of materials and things like that. But for the most part, to me, that looks much more like a single family type residence than than apartment type residence. The facades are slightly different, even though I'm sure the floor plans are extremely similar in each one. So again, it was more to just embody the intent. But these are in Louisville. Again, I think this is a product that would mesh well with what's across the street from a single-family perspective, material-wise, and elevation-wise. Again, obviously just not having the third story. But go to the next one, it's pretty similar. Again, same type thing. These are like, I think they're row homes. Again, I don't know if they're for lease or for purchase, but these are, again, elements of these units look more like single-family homes, just kind of smashed together. And so kind of embodying that spirit and intent of a townhome style, while I would think could still be applied to an apartment. Now, what I didn't like about this is that there's no elevation relief horizontally. There's, it's basically a flat wall all along the front, but it has very nice gabling. It's got good, what are the things on the roofs called?
The dormers?
The dormers.
Dormers.
I don't know if they're functional or not, but they give a little more visual character or visual interest to the product. So again, just trying to try to meet that intent. Go on to the next one. This one also similar. What I like about this one is it had balconies. That was one of our original comments to the applicant, was provide some outdoor balconies for the units. And I chose this one because it looked extremely similar to the applicant's, what I guess I thought could be the floor plan. And it did have some good horizontal relief with the areas that were gabled coming out, and then the areas that were flat being pushed back. And I thought that was real similar to the applicant's, even though I think most of his elevations had 4 of the bump outs versus this one just has 3. But in any case, again, just trying to meet that intent and the spirit of looking more like a townhome and less like an apartment building. A lot of the other elements too that we had mentioned previously, like these are, I don't know what the plate heights are in these, but they're definitely not 8. And so you have more area above the windows to kind of do some detailing. This one in particular has some good brick detailing above the windows and above the entryways, things like that, just to give it, again, we're just looking for that visual interest on the exterior. I think the next couple were some that Brian looked up, so I want to talk a little bit about those.
Yeah, and this was, I think, I believe I shared this at the last meeting, and this one was in Euless. And again, it's just the idea of the visual interest, the features, the variation. This one has a bit of that flat wall look, which isn't super desirable, but it was mostly just to kind of show just the idea of the townhouse aesthetic. Also, with this particular site, it integrates near a major road and a major highway in Euless. It's near existing older development as well as new development, and that's not necessarily a perfect analog to what we have going on here, but we do have that area that's currently zoned ag, but is envisioned to be commercial to the west of the property. And then of course that would be right at the corner of Interstate 35 and Red Oak Road. So, that was just kind of another reason for sharing it. Then this was in Midlothian. I couldn't get a better picture than this. It's a pretty new development. I couldn't find their drawings online. But again, this was, I would say maybe still a little bland. And it's hard to see in this, but they, like in their garage doors, they still have glass panels at the very top. Probably hard to see that. And as even Taylor had mentioned, sometimes if you require all masonry, it's hard to give that variation that we may be asking for. And in this case, this has a mixture of I think it's a hardy material, but it's done more in a board and batten vertical running style. And I'm not necessarily saying board and batten is what it would be great for red oak. I'm just saying that that's interest. That's just an architectural detail. And it does kind of speak to Taylor's point, though, that, you know, he's providing that 80% masonry requirement, and is asking to use some non-masonry materials to try to get some architectural interest. And depending on what he ultimately ends up bringing back, and that's something for y'all to think about and discuss, is how strongly do you feel about the 80% masonry? Maybe you feel very strong. Maybe you want more. Or maybe it's the thing of if he brings something that looks cool enough, whatever that is, that maybe you're okay with a little less masonry if that's what it takes. And so that's just something for y'all to talk about, think about. So those were just some of the images and sites. The other thing I'll add, I don't have a good example here, but I think I saw one of the other P&Z members' images, is we'll also want to make sure that we don't have any mechanicals viewable from the road. What I mean is we don't want to see AC units. We don't want to see the utility meters. So something about the site design also needs to make sure that we don't see that type of equipment or the meters and such right away. So with that, I think we can maybe go on to some of the P&Z members, unless Ben, there's something you want to share. I guess I'll go with Kim. That was the first one. So Kim, you're coming up soon. As soon as I figure out how to make sure I'm sharing this correctly.
Okay.
So, Kim, this is one of your first photos. Maybe you can tell us the location or the site and just what you like and don't like about it, or why you wanted to share it.
Okay, this picture is from an apartment complex that's actually over in Grand Prairie called Mansions at Lake Ridge. I just liked it from an aesthetics perspective. I think it's something that when we heard from the community of we don't want something that looks like apartments, that also has some garages attached to it. So when you first look at it, it doesn't look like an apartment complex. So that's why I liked it, since it did have the garages that's a part of the design, where it looks more like a single family home instead of just the old traditional apartment looking style. So that was the reason I liked it. I don't necessarily care for the roof color, but the design of it I did like. Also, I think landscaping is something that we would like to see included, and it has a little landscaping. I do think the previous pictures that we saw had more landscaping, which looked nice as well. And then just more of the same. And then this was an apartment complex that I actually saw over the weekend outside of Weatherford. And it's a brand new apartment complex. Now, granted, I know that we want something that's only 2-story, but I did like it. It's something that is new, modern looking, that doesn't look like your traditional apartment complexes. And it looks more like something modern, single family home. It obviously looks like it has some space for retail, if that's something we want included, since it is going to be at the corner of Red Oak Road and Hickory Creek. It'll be a high traffic area, so we might have the opportunity to add in some retail space.
Yeah, I think, Kim, that would look really good on the corner. You know, is this at the corner of two intersecting streets, or is it just?
It's at the it's on the you can see it from the service road of I-20 actually.
Okay.
But something like that would, like you said, would look nice at the corner and does provide the opportunity possibly for some retail space. I like the lanterns out front, so I think there needs to be some type of lighting around the exterior of the building. And like you said earlier, you don't see any of the utility aspects of it from this view. And I'm not sure if I sent you a picture, but interesting enough, on the inside of this apartment complex, it has a nice pool area. So it's very community friendly, and had lots of community space as well provided with this apartment complex. So which provides that sense of community, even though you are living in individual apartment complexes, a lot like you have in neighborhoods. And I think that was the only pictures that I provided, Brian.
Okay. Sorry, I'm taking notes. And the other thing I'll point out was that I see a bench, at least here. So sometimes, little details like that can be helpful. And again, obviously, this building has, some architectural interest. Sometimes we call it a rhythm. You've got the vertical rhythm along the roof line as things are going up and down. The walls kind of go in and out. They've got that horizontal rhythm. And then, of course, the color changes materials. So, it certainly has, what we're calling the architectural interest. So
I thought it looked nice with the existing homes in Hickory Creek as well, right? So, and I'm not know the exact name of that subdivision, but I did think this looked nice and would be something that would fit in with the current aesthetics there.
Oh, so if this was sort of like a 2-story version, so like a 2-story version of this is something you think might work?
I think so.
Or were you wanting?
Yeah, no, 2-story version. I just only saw the 3-story yet. No, I think a 2-story version is what we're looking for in the neighborhood.
Okay. All right, and then I think Roy sent us some stuff, so bear with me as I fumble through my navigation. All right, so Leroy, you want to tell us about this first image, why you chose it, location, what you like, what you don't like?
I'm not sure if I can speak to the location. I just was just doing some research just to see what was out there. I was looking far and wide. I didn't want to limit it to anything. I was just looking pretty much everywhere to see what was out there. I think the pictures that y'all shown already have been great. Ben's pictures, Brian's pictures, Kim's pictures. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what we're looking for. As Taylor said, the interior of these apartments are going to be really nice. He said something about marble or granite countertops and, stainless steel appliances and wood floors and all kinds of, it sounds incredible, which is wonderful, like a house, modern houses. And so some of the things we're talking about here are just things that go along with that, what you would expect to see from what I saw in the pictures that were submitted. And maybe they didn't really reflect very well what it would look like when it was done. Obviously, the roof was kind of hard to tell with it being dark. It all blended in. But it was not impressive at all. And no offense to anyone who did that. It's better than I could have done. But these things really show, like I said, we're looking for something that fits in. Something that fits into that neighborhood. That neighborhood wasn't there whenever apartments were slated to go in. Now we have that neighborhood there. And I understand the masonry is part of it. You can see, again, the kind of variation that we have here. It doesn't have to be exact, but just some elements that we're talking about here to break it up, to make it fit the neighborhood and to make it something that the neighbors can be proud of, even though, it's an apartment complex. They didn't sign up for that. They could still look over there and say, that's a pretty nice apartment complex. That's actually not terrible. I would love for, I wouldn't mind my kids living over there to get started or something like that. And again, it's kind of hard to compare that to the Red Oak Legacy development that's going in. It's kind of it's not really an apples to apples in my mind, because we already know what the retail is going to go in there. It's really designed to be high-end retail, and we've got those really high-end apartments. This one seems to be more like fitting the neighborhood. I think, stone is great. I saw some of those pictures that Kim had and that y'all had here as well. It could be like tumbled stone. It could be, Austin stone. It could be, a variety or a mixture, depending on the unit. I know y'all could probably come up with some really incredible things, and these are just some ideas. The roof pitch and things like that.
Leroy, our main takeaway from your photos is basically like, it looks like a lot of horizontal relief and a lot of material changes. It's kind of what this picture represents to me. Is that kind of where you're kind of going with that's what you liked about it? Not necessarily that it's a bunch of siding, but just that it's different material changes.
Yeah, I mean, not specifically these materials, but just something different.
Right.
That you saw in the plan.
Right.
And something that fits in the neighborhood.
Right.
So is it sharing this one then?
Yeah, so Leroy, this looks similar it's got a lot of horizontal relief, gables, patios, so kind of and a lot of different materials. So I assume that's kind of what you were trying to convey through these. That's what you liked about it, with all the visual interest.
Yeah, like I said, all these pictures really, it doesn't have to be one or the other. Just kind of maybe a little bit of everything, or whatever y'all can come up with. This is a lot different than what we saw in these plans that were submitted, and this is what I would expect to see if I was going to walk in and see stuff like granite countertops and all the interior. It's going to be as nice as what I heard.
Right. One thing to just make a tying point to what Kim had talked about, which was the kind of idea of looking single family-ish. So to my eyes, this building here on the left kind of has that single family look in a way. It could easily be a 2-story house, this apartment. And part of it is helped by a point I was making earlier, where the garage door has the lights on top, the glass panels, I mean. It's just little things like that can help to make it look more residential, have a more residential feel. And a quick side note, I guess I feel like I should make, we do want to talk about amenities, both inside and outside. Just remember, though, with zoning, we can't regulate the inside. So it's great to know that, that's something that the developer, the applicant, wants to put in with hardwood and granite, stainless steel and all, but zoning does not make that happen. Zoning can help make more of the community assets happen, like a pool, outdoor space, benches, to some degree, the pool house, to some degree amenities about like trash service and all that, but you can't really get into the level of saying that the inside is going to have hardwood floors. So just wanted to make sure that P&Z understood that those kind of interior amenities, we want to hear about them, and it's great, but just know that zoning is not going, if you approve the zoning, hardwood and stainless appliances are not part of the zoning that's getting approved. That's, you basically, since as far as I know, there's no development agreement associated with the project, there's nothing to obligate anyone to actually do that. But of course, the pictures we've seen from Taylor have shown that that's what he does, so I'm not saying he wouldn't, but I just don't want you to think that if you were to approve the zoning, that somehow there's an obligation there to actually do that. And then Leroy, this is one of your other pictures.
Yeah, again, it's a 3-story, but you can see the balconies and.
So what was it you liked or didn't like about this one?
Yeah, it's got the balconies. It looks like it's got some stone on the bottom. Of course, it's 3 stories, but you know, we can imagine that 2 stories. But you know, again, just this is not like what was submitted in the plans, and maybe what was in the plans. If it was built, it might look better than what I see on paper. But what I see on paper is not impressive from a P&Z standpoint, from my perspective. And I think the neighbors weren't really thrilled with what they saw at our last meeting. So these are just some ideas.
All right.
Thanks, Leroy.
I guess before we go to Taylor, I'm just gonna take a quick pause just to see, I guess, if any of the other P&Z members seen these photos. If there's anything y'all wanna talk before we let Taylor share his, or do we wanna go on to Taylor? So I guess I'd just say, if there's any P&Z members in particular on Zoom, or Lance, if there's anything y'all wanna discuss or talk about from those images that we've just shown, now would be a good time to do that real quick.
Yes, it's Willie Franklin speaking. I didn't want to cut in on anyone's presentation. The photos that we seen originally of the townhomes, those were pretty much my train of thought as far as what I was looking forward to seeing. If we look at Leroy's, I think it was the second photo, if possible.
Okay.
Because for me, I'm more so set on, I don't want to see just another set of apartments that's developed and set in Red Oak and that's it. I want, if we're going to do this, I would like for Red Oak to set the mark on a nice set of quality built apartments, however, that fits the neighborhood and fits the area, the demographic. Looking at this particular photo, especially the unit on the end, I think this is a great photo of the one on the end, because I think it's a way to merge this particular elevation with the townhome type theme. Because I know it's apartments, but I still see like a townhome feel. And I think this is a great way to kind of merge the two, but still keep it apartment, but with a townhome look. And I think Leroy did a great job with this particular photo, because I think it merges the two in a way. On the end unit, I see home.
Anyone else on P&Z have any thoughts or comments? All right, well then let's go on to Taylor here. Taylor, you're up next as I try to get to your file.
Okay, thank you.
Is this image up on?
Yep.
All right.
So guys, what I wanted to do was show you 4 different elevations that we have built in the past on this product type. And again, the pictures that we showed the other day were 2D. It was a front shot only. As you can see with this building, there is a lot of undulation and horizontal breakup with the building. This one does have some more vertical articulation than the one we showed. And the reason for that was, again, you're just looking at dark roof line on dark roof line on a sketch, and it didn't show well. And but what I wanted to show here was, for example, you know, we have several different roof lines. We have all the articulation. We have several different masonry requirements. But I will also say this property is about 65% masonry and 35% hardy. And your requirement in the PD calls for 80%. And in the original presentation, we were told to meet that requirement. And as I mentioned the other night, when we have a little bit more freedom on the use of hardy, we can pizzazz it up. So with that being said, this is one elevation that we have, and on the back, this is the side that would front the street. And we have garages on the back side. I think if you go to the next one, the next one's going to be the Sarah. And this one actually, again, it has the vertical and horizontal articulations that you guys have discussed. I do want to point out one thing though. We do not do balconies. And there's a specific reason. You can drive around the apartments, go drive around the one in Red Oak that's off of Ovia and see what everybody stores on their balconies. Apartment renters typically store junk in their apartments, whereas homeowners on their balconies, whereas homeowners maintain them. We can put them in, but we can't govern what people put on them. This way it prevents them from doing that. It also gives it a lot cleaner, more fresh look. Here we have some of the shed roofs. Some of the shed roofs were on the project I showed the other day. Again, they just didn't show well because we did a 2D versus a 3D elevation. But we could go with this look. Brian, would you go to the next property or the next slide, please? Page 3.
Should be.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Yeah, sorry, not slide, but page. So again, this is another property that we built in Pflugerville. You can see we have two different, we have a shake hardy, we have some horizontal hardy, we have brick. You can't really see them from this angle, but like right past the first arch, those are garages right there. And if you go to the next slide, you'll actually see them better. Vertical articulation. But Brian, if you go to number 4, you know, Willie and Leroy, what you guys were talking earlier, that townhome look on the end, you know, that's what this gives. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but this is a townhome look. So these are some different styles that we can go with and are happy to go with. One of the things that I did want to point out, and it's an either or option, but over the next two end of the building. So if, Brian, if you can go to number 5, please. If you look at the, and I don't really have a lot of pictures of just the end of the building, but you'll see on the end of the building, we have a hip roof versus a gable roof. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see on the end of the building, we have gable roofs instead of hip roofs. We can go either way. Just, I wanted that to be a topic of conversation as we get down to, you know, the final topic on the agenda. So, you know, and again, I think if you look at this property, you have the articulation out front, you have the horizontal and vertical elevations. It looks real nice, and you have great landscaping. So those are some of the thoughts that we had, some of the ideas that I wanted to put forth as we talk through everything. And with Brian, with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
A question.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm noticing when you point out the end units, I'm noticing both end units that you pointed out all have utilities on those end units. Is that a must or is that optional?
Where do you recommend we put them? We have to put them somewhere.
Well, I don't think they should be visible if I ride by from the street.
Okay. Again, Willie, and please understand, I'm not being argumentative.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we put them? You have to put them somewhere. They're on the side of your house. They're on the side of everybody's house. They have to go somewhere, and they have to go together. If I put them in
I think there's some screening options that could be explored, but Taylor, I think, you know, Willie's concern is is really the corner. You know, I think a lot of your buildings are gonna be blocked by, either landscaping or screening, devices. And so, and Willie, don't let me put words in your mouth, but I think what he's saying is we wanna have some way to screen those as we're driving down Red Oak Road or Hickory Creek.
Right.
So those are our kind of our main points that we don't want to see things. And again, Taylor, I know you don't want to do it. You don't have the product for it, but that's why we were suggesting a building on the corner that followed the corner, so that the site could be similar to Kim's image, kind of a big cornerstone piece. But
Well,
I think, Willie,
again,
correct me if you're wrong, that's kind of what you're talking about, is you
No,
don't
you're
want
right.
to see it from Red Oak Road or Hickory Creek. So possibly just a simple landscaping type screening in front of it could mitigate that concern.
Well,
Right.
we can do that. And please also remember that you have a 6-foot high screening fence along Red Oak and Hickory Creek.
Right, and it's a iron bar fence, correct? With that's
With
it's not
landscaping.
fake.
With landscaping.
Right.
But again, we
Right.
can block it. That's not the issue. But if you're saying they can't be on the ends of the buildings or on the sides of the buildings, in the front of the buildings, they have to go somewhere.
No, what I'm saying
that-
is they were noticeable on both units as we reviewed the photos. So my question was there a way to either relocate those or cover those or something? But looking at both units that you presented, they automatically popped out to me. And I understand I may look at it with a different eye because this is the field that I'm in, but though that popped out on both units that you pointed
Okay.
out.
Fair enough. We can address that. But I would argue that would not be something that would be addressed in a P and Z hearing. It would be something that would be addressed when we're in site planning and trying to get permit approvals.
That's fair. Touche.
That's not entirely accurate.
Yeah, it would be addressed here at zoning, and it would be included on your site plan, which is, part of what we're discussing.
Yeah. And guys, I do want to point out a couple of things. You've talked about, and Brian has mentioned several times, the word more. You can ask for more. You can. The zoning laws and the PD requirements, we are required to meet those, and we are obligated to meet those, and we will meet those. For a city to all of a sudden demand more opens itself up to some other issues. Also, in regards, in 2019, the state passed a law that says cities cannot any longer govern exterior materials. And we're governing exterior materials. Now, I say both of those with the understanding that I'm here to work with y'all. I will work with the materials. I will work with doing what's required to build an apartment. I will design facades that hopefully you guys can appreciate and approve. But to tell me that we have to have corner buildings, which is not required, to request the potential of retail, which it's not even zoned for, we're asking for things that are not consistent with the zoning in place. And it's sending a conflicting message to me and the landowner on what we need to do and not do.
Well, and that is the purpose tonight, is to get clarity. I don't want to put words in Kim's mouth, but I don't think she was requiring retail. I think she was noting that could be something interesting that was a possibility. Obviously, that would require a revision to the PD to actually make happen. And then to, I guess, your other points, I would like to see this be a productive, fruitful conversation, but I don't know how to say this any more diplomatically than I'm about to. Those sounded like thinly veiled legal threats, and we don't have our attorney present. So if we keep, if we're going to start going down that road, I don't know how fruitful this evening will be.
Brian, it was not a legal threat, but in the same sense, it's our job to come up with something together, not demand something that's not required under the zoning.
Right, Taylor, we 100% understand what you're saying, but the way our zoning code is written, we've talked about this before, you are required to submit a development plan, and that development plan is open to scrutiny to both staff and P&Z and city council on the items that are either silent or not clearly addressed in the zoning. The zoning that is in place is very minimal and doesn't address everything. And so, we've said a lot of times here that we're not discussing the use of an apartment complex or the density that was already given. In the same manner, we weren't trying to say more masonry or more landscaping than that was required. We're just trying to get a form of building and form of site layout that will be conducive to the long-term sustainability of not only the city, but residents that live in the city. We want this to our goal is merely to get the best product that we can get in the city of Red Oak.
So at this point, I guess I'd say, if there's any people in the public that are listening and need to speak and be heard, since they've had a chance to listen in and see and hear what we've been talking about, this would be a good time. John, would you mind, can you tell if we've got anyone who maybe with the public, or if there is the general public listening, if you can virtually raise your hand and speak up so we can give you that opportunity?
One phone number 6086. I have Lisa's iPhone.
Their hands raised. Lisa, are you there?
She able to speak?
That doesn't look muted. Lisa, we can't hear you. So we saw that you raised your hand virtually. Maybe, well, let's give her a minute. Maybe she's going to call back in.
This is 6086.
The end of her phone number was 608?
Somebody.
Oh, someone else. Okay. Well, while we're waiting to see if Lisa calls back, is there anyone from the general public that would like to speak and be heard? Because if not, we'll need to move on and with our conversation here. So
I've got one other question I was going to.
Okay.
You can go back to Taylor's picture number 4. And the question really comes back to this picture and then picture number 1 and touches back on something that both of you had mentioned. And I'm obviously not speaking for everybody, but the question A, I guess, is how much masonry is in this building compared to building number one. I think one, he said there was 65% or so. And ultimately where I'm going is, as long as the aesthetic was met with the surrounding neighborhood and we still could get a nicer looking product, I would be of the leaning that we could reduce the 80% masonry requirement if we're getting still a better looking product. I think Taylor used the word pizzazz. I just don't know how much masonry is here, and I'm not advocating that we go down to 40 or 50, but assuming that, again, it met the aesthetic of the neighborhood, I think a less than 80% masonry requirement would be a discussion piece.
Yeah, I want to say that the neighborhood was probably a minimum of 100% on the front, for the single-family homes, of course, talking about 100% on the front and then 80 on each side. Is
I believe.
That's pretty for those. I think I remember that's what I wrote down. So 100 on the front and then 80 on the surrounding. But I'll just kind of touch a little, Brian, I don't know if you can go back to the pictures I had. Those first.
Lisa's back on.
Oh, Lisa, you on there? Did you want to say something?
Yes, can you?
Yeah, we
Can
can
you-
hear you now.
Oh, okay. I apologize. That a little technical challenge here. Yes, as I was listening in.
Lisa, can you do me a favor and state your full name and your address for me?
Oh, sure, I sure can. Lisa Johnson. I'm at 719 Red Oak Drive, Red Oak, Texas, in the Cowley Ridge subdivision.
Thanks.
Okay, as I was listening to some of the conversations that was taking place around the planning and development of the, I guess you can call, you guys are calling them apartments. And I also saw some of the pictures. I do have some of the same concerns for the exterior look, being equivalent to the housing that's already has been built in the neighborhood, as well as I think there was mention about balconies. As it was mentioned also, balconies, when you come to talking about apartments complexes, the resident tends to do store junk on the balcony. So I think that would take away from the beautification, even from the building as well as the neighborhood itself. So if we could get something appealing as it is with the housing that's already, the residential housing that are already there, that would be my only concern. So, Red Oak, because Red Oak is growing, and we want to continue to have people come out and be residents of Red Oak and live in this community. With that, I'm gonna stop talking and turn it back over to you guys.
All right, thank you so much for the input.
You're quite welcome.
So I just wanted to jump back to some of these photos I had. So these were a higher masonry than what's required by the PD, but I think they give plenty of visual interest just through things like the balcony, not the balcony, the porch or roof overhangs. I don't know what the technical term is. I'm sure there's some architectural term for those. But that kind of gives visual interest. A lot of changes in the window sizes too are giving good visual interest in this particular one. Even, and then again, the vertical rhythm that Brian kind of mentioned, this one also has that type of rhythm to it, and having the gables out there in the front instead of the hip roofs makes a huge difference. And even though they're not required to, could take masonry all the way up to the top of the gable. obviously that'd be a developer choice, since they're not technically required to, but I just wanted to point out that you could do 100% masonry and still get really good character delineations. Go down to the next picture.
Yep.
Kind of has the same type of, yeah, so again, this one was a little too flat in the front, didn't have the horizontal relief, but they were able to kind of make it look a little more visually interesting just by utilizing the different materials throughout the frontages of it. Again, this is also, so in this case, the windows are all the same size, but with the changes, like in between the windows, they changed the brick pattern. You know, simple things like that can really add character to the front there. But again, it's also got the gables, it's got the dormers, and then also the little shed roofs coming off to give it some of that architectural interest. These are also all these ones that I believe most of us have had pictures of. They're all going to be, it looks like a minimum of a 9-foot top plate, which allows your window, again, to have a little treatment at the top of them versus being tucked into the top cornice of the building. I did want to just mention on the balconies, we can control that through zoning, through the kind of a small note that would just say no outside storage allowed on balconies. Now, that would be up to the city to enforce, so it can become a code issue for our code department, but that is something that can be controlled through the zoning.
One, and to, I think, Kim and someone else, maybe it was Willie, and I don't want to put words on y'all's mouth, but it sounded like, y'all were talking about like the idea of like the residential or the single family feel, community, that kind of thing.
Yes.
So, balconies help with that. Now, the other thing is, depending on how the site layout is and design, I mean, I think Kim was, maybe making a point, and again, I want to put words in Kim's mouth, then one of the image she showed for the outside Weatherford, she was talking about kind of that sense of community on that site. And so that's another thing to kind of keep in mind, the balconies, so at least if they were on the inside, can help facilitate a sense of community internally in the development, as well as connecting it to the rest of the city by balconies on the outside. But, this is something to consider. I mean, again, as Ben said, we can always have that as a regulation, no outside storage on a balcony, define what that means, and the city would have to enforce it through code enforcement. But if it was on the internal inside, we wouldn't, because we would really only care about what we see from the road. If it's internal and you can't see it from the road, then we would leave that to be more of a problem for the property manager to deal with.
And Brian, we don't want to deal with that. That's one of the ways we regulate it, is by not having them. And we create sense of community through our amenity package, which is what Kim was talking about on the property in Weatherford. Was there amenity?
Well, maybe that's a good segue. You want to tell us more about the amenities?
Well, yeah. I mean, I did the other day as well. We're going to have a resort style pool. We're going to have outdoor cooking and dining. We're going to have a dog park. We're going to have a paw spa. We're going to have an outdoor yoga yard, gaming areas, lounging areas, a hammock area potentially. There's all sorts of things that you can do. And those are all things that we incorporate into all of our projects. We have a fitness center in the clubhouse that's over 1,000 square feet. We have game rooms inside. We have co-working spaces inside. It's as nice as anything that you're going to see in any community in town, except we don't have bars, which some of the high-rise have.
May I ask the question? Not to cut you off. Do you have photos of these amenities that we can take a look at?
I do. I don't have them that I can share tonight, but I'll forward them after this. I'll forward them to Brian and he can forward them to you guys.
All right, and may I ask Mr. Ross, Mr. Ross is the architect, correct?
Yeah, I'm here.
Mr. Ross, in your professional opinion, is it possible to take photos 1, 2, and I believe 3 from city staff and apply that facade to the photos that were presented to us as a potential development?
Well, we have more vertical changes. We have, not everything straight up and down on ours. We have some setbacks and stuff like that, which makes masonry tougher, to take. This is just straight up and down, very easy to take the masonry up. But I'll go on to say that even though the first 3 pictures that John issued, have this 100% masonry basically, but most of the photos that the other council members issued were probably less than 50% masonry. A lot of siding, a lot of color, a lot of attenuation and that stuff. And everybody seemed to like that too. So it can be done, I think, without having to bring the units. I mean, it's a design of the units. I mean, I do a lot of 3-story product like this, and you tend to make it flatter in the front. But when you do these 2-story houses like we've done, apartment type houses, you get a lot of changes, ins and outs, and it just makes it tougher to make it 100% masonry. So
okay.
If that's what you're saying, is that can we make it look like that with 100%? That would probably be above and beyond what the zoning requires too. But I think, like I said, I was going to make that comment earlier, but I didn't really have a spot. But that most, other than these 3 pictures, most of the other ones had a lot of material changes in it too. And I'll put a plug in for Hardy siding. It's a cementous impregnated product now that is virtually like masonry. I've got a project in Plano right now, and they consider Hardy board as masonry because it's just you paint it and it stays there. So it's not the old masonite and cedar siding that we had 15, 20 years ago. So it really, I do a lot of products, a lot of projects or craftsman style and this type of thing. I have a lot of siding and shingles in it, and it just gives it a lot of interest.
We're not, of course, we're not asking you to go 100% if the code reads, I believe, 80%. But more so my concern was, and the concern that I took some notes from the last meeting from the public throughout the chat. The biggest concern is when I look at these, this project on the screen, I see character. I see different style of windows. I see architectural features. I see shutters on the windows. And that makes a difference as far as it doesn't look all the same. And for me personally, that's my aim. I don't want to see a apartment complex and it looks like the same apartment complex that's 10 minutes up the street. If we're going to go for Red Oak and we're going to build in Red Oak, for me personally, I would love to see Red Oak kind of set the standard on a nice apartment style product to give the homeowner, or the apartment renter, a sense of ownership as well as everything around it. So that's when I look at pictures 1, 2, and 3, I sense that. And I was asking from an architect, is there a way that you feel you can implement this style into the presented product?
Well, I suppose there's always a way to do it. I'm going to throw something back at you. One of your favorite pictures was that end unit on the 3 that went down to the 2-story on the end. Well, that was probably less than 50% masonry, and you liked it. I mean, what was it about it that you liked? Maybe you just don't realize. Well,
I like the style of it, the layout of it.
It had ins and outs. It had fronts and backs. It wasn't straight up and down. That's what you liked about it, and that kind of dictates that you're not going to put brick when it's sitting up over framing. You try not to. I mean, it's possible, but you try not to. So, it's just some of those pictures. This is a townhouse. We're This is 3 stories. If you see this in a 2-story version, it wouldn't look quite this well.
Well, you're the architect. That's why I asked if it was possible.
Well, anything's possible. I mean, they make shaved brick where you can stick it on the wall, but I mean, it's just not economically feasible. It's the same thing here.
Okay, so hey, I'm gonna go over here to picture 3. It was 2-story, and then I picked this one because it had, what I thought was pretty similar to Taylor's base, foundation footprint, where it's got the kind of 3 elements coming out and then 2 elements going in. So I thought, can you get that?
That's not this one, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
This
this,
one.
right.
So that's why I did pick this one. Obviously, like in this, I think what Willie's trying to say is, you know, it's got the white stone on the left, and then in the middle, it's got white stone in the middle with the red brick on top, and then, you know, it would probably look great to go with a shake or something in the gable, and then maybe hardy under these patios, and then the columns would still be some kind of masonry, but that would get you to that, you know, 80% masonry, and then still be able to utilize some of your hardy. But I think that's kind of what the thought is that, for instance, the Sarah, it has, you know, every building has the exact same brick on it, and the exact same patterns, and the exact same location of the siding on the exact same building. So it's just maybe mixing up some of the like, so to me, I guess you'd look at this one and go, okay, well, the building next to it, it would have red brick on the ends and then the all white brick in the middle. You know, it's just a simple change like that, to give more visual interest, so that we're not just looking at, I can't remember, how many buildings are on the site, like 20 on the same
And
site?
also to create that residential feel that, from what I think I've heard from P&Z generally, is to create that residential feel.
Right.
I think then with what you're describing, to me, it sounds like that's another way in which you achieve a residential feel.
Right, because not every house doesn't look the same.
Well, we have 4 or 5
I
building
think,
sites.
just
with
to
more-
clarify, I think that's what we're all trying to say.
Well, guys, and I think we can incorporate a lot of what you're saying. The gables, we can incorporate. And you know, putting some more color and whether it's 2 colors of brick, whether it's you know, a use of siding or shake, or, you know, shake siding, the shaker or shingles or whatever looking siding, in ways that do create that character, we can do that. You know, it's going to take some back and forth to where, you know, what I can't do and what we can't do is go back and forth 100 times, because every time I redraw this stuff, and Ross, you can tell me if I'm wrong, it costs $5,000 to $10,000. And you know, if you guys want to see more gables, I can add more gables. If you guys want more character and, you know, have some shed roofs over here and shingles, you know, and shutters over here and break it up and things like that, we can do that. But what we can't afford to do is go back and forth 50 times to make it right. And, you know, and I'll go back to the 3 properties I showed. Yes, I heard you when you said all the buildings look the same. Well, unfortunately, and again, one of these days I'm going to get it right. We have 4 different building types, and no 2 are in a row. So when you're driving down the road, they all don't look the same. But with that being said, we can change up the buildings. My question to you is, that's paint. That's color of brick. Do you like the architectural styles? Do those have an architectural style that you can live with? This building you're showing me now, quite frankly, I can make mine look like this without the balconies. I'm going to say it again. We will not do balconies. They do not work well in apartments, and they're not required. We do have porches. We do have undulation. But I think, you know, we could do some Juliet balconies, but that people can't store stuff on there. They can open up their door and smoke a cigarette. But we don't want to really encourage that either. So again, I would go back to, you know, the architectural picture or layout or whatever of what we have showed resemble a lot of the stuff that you're showing us. Gables, vertical articulation, horizontal undulation. You know, if it comes down to just color after that, we'll work with color. But is there something on the 3 or 4 pictures I showed that you guys don't like?
Can we pull those up, Liz?
Hey, John.
Let's see, no, I don't see
Yeah,
that.
sorry, bear with me.
And for the record, I'm in agreement with you with the balconies. I'm not the biggest fan of them, but I do understand why some may be. So I totally get it.
See how some of the,
So I guess, can we all, is this all being shared? Can we see this picture, everyone?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess my thought would be, you know, on something like this, you're going to have like a heavier material kind of on the bottom, and then maybe the lighter, a smaller brick that kind of goes up on the bump outs, or something like that to kind of give that interest. Like I don't know, similar to that other picture we were looking at, you'd have some red or some white stone on the bottom, and then the red brick at the top, and then you'd have in the gables you'd have like shake or the siding or whatever, and so you're giving it like you said, if it comes down to color and changing the bricks and doing that, then great. But what we've seen thus far was monotonous in color and in the color palette and material choice.
And again, I hate to say it, but we matched brick and color of the houses across the street. Not every one, because, you know, we only had one, but that brick and the paint colors were pulled off of houses across the street. So,
right. And the houses, but the houses across the street also have stone and all that as well. So I understand that you took one brick from the screening wall and put it all over every single one of your buildings, but there's also other elements in that subdivision that have different types of stone. And so, again, if I'm looking at this picture, I could say, well, you've got 3 bump outs, so you could have, you know, maybe the 2 on the ends match and the 1 in the middle is different. Just whatever you do, it's just different.
and we could do that. Again, that's paint color or brick color.
What about window styles? What about, did you say you can add like dormers and, I just want to see a sense of character, a sense of something that when the public get a wind of this, it's not such a big backlash. They can say, okay, they're apartments, but they are XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I don't get when I see this picture. When I see this picture, I see what I see everywhere around town. I don't see nothing that stands out or something that we can take to the public, and the public will, even though they're 100% against apartments, they see something that say, okay, this helps my property value, or this doesn't hurt me across the street, directly across the street with a $320,000 house.
well, I'm gonna make one comment about this as opposed to apartments. I do a lot of apartments, and you see stairs in almost all apartments, unless it's like some of the pictures that the lady showed that were big 3-story units with interior corridors, that you don't see the stairs. But most apartments that you see, and some of those photos you saw, have breezeways, and you see the stairs. And now that says apartments to me. These say townhouses because you don't see any stairs. And they're two-story, they're not studio units, they're flats over flats, but you see no stairs. It's an ingenious, this is the only of all the 60,000 apartments I've done, this is the only product type that you don't see any stairs that doesn't have an interior corridor. And
Well, here's my question.
Stone is way ahead of the apartment builders in making something look like townhouses that fit into a residential area over, I'm sure, some of the other apartments you have in your town. I haven't seen all your apartments, but I'm sure you're going to see some stairs and some breezeways because that's a code thing. So I'm just going to say that I think it's the elephant in the room that these units in general style do not look like apartments.
Right, but here's my question that I posed to you earlier. Is there a way to take photos 1 and 2 and 3 from staff and implement those into what I'm seeing here with your product from a character standpoint? Is there a way to do that with your product?
There's always a way. Yeah, I mean, these got the canopies, they've got the gables. It's just a matter of more masonry, but you know, that's a problem. I mean, as far as monotony, I mean, the others had some stone and brick. That may be something that Taylor is willing to experiment with. But you know, we're trying to make these affordable to build too. Sure, and I'm not speaking for the entire commission. It's just concerns that I have, and I just want to make sure I'm vocal about those. Because when I look at 1, 2, and 3, I'm not talking about necessarily stone compared to yours. I'm just talking about the first 3 photos that I've seen of those townhomes. I seen individuality. I didn't see the first 3 units that I'm looking at here all have the same exact windows, all have the same exact overhang. You know, that's what I'm referring to. I'm just going to make one comment that I've made to other people. You see one building, and you say, well, this thing has got to have a lot of attenuation. It's got to have a lot of different things going on. But you got to understand, we've got 18 buildings, and they're all juxtaposed together, 20 feet apart, and they're 90 degrees from each other. And you kind of have to look at it as you drive through a project of all the attenuation that you're getting because of the juxtaposition of the buildings. You can't look at every building and make this a little jewel by itself because it's not sitting out there by itself like a house. It's what I see. It's what I see. But when you drive through and you see 16 of them, it's a different effect because you're looking at different angles, you're looking at different deals, and I'm just saying that you can't micro manage every building with the window sizes and stuff like that because you're not going to see it when you're driving through the project or driving by the project. It's just, you're looking at several buildings together and you got to look at it that way, in my mind. But yeah, I mean, these have different size windows. We got little windows, we got double windows, we got single windows. I guess, you know, there's codes. I mean, you can't take the windows all the way to the floor. You know, you got to be a couple feet off the ground. And 36 inches. You know, and so it forces you into certain size windows, and they have to meet egress. So they have to open up a certain size. 5.7 square feet on the second floor. There you go.
Okay, this is a completely untechnical comment, so I'll start with that. To me, these don't have any pizzazz. They look boring, where some of the other pictures that we saw tonight, I mean, they look classier. So that's my completely, you know, not technical opinion.
And then what you guys want is more color. And that's what it sounds like it amounts to, is you want more color options on the building than just one color brick and a couple colors of siding. Because Willie, the first 3 that you showed, everything was multiple colors. Everything was broken up vertically, not horizontally, but vertically, to where, like you looked at slide number 2, it looked like individual row homes that you'd see in Baltimore. But, you know, we can do that.
Or something with a mixture of brick and rock or stone or whatever it actually is.
Well, and that's a potential too. The problem is stone costs 3 times as much as brick. Just that's, so we can use it as accents, but using it throughout the property. And a lot of architects nowadays will say that stone and brick is a dated combination from the 2000s. So do we want to create a timeless product or do we want to create a dated product? But we can do both. It doesn't bother me.
I think the answer is, let's look at the neighborhood next door. I mean, that neighborhood was built. In fact, it's just been finished out. Whatever that neighborhood looks like, we're looking for something similar. It doesn't have to be exact. This is a great product that you have here. I'm not, Taylor, you've taken a lot of hits. You got a great product, and what you submitted here, I mean, going back and looking at it, I can see what you're talking about. It didn't come across well on the paper, but as I look at it a little bit closer, I can see what you're talking about, it being recessed and, coming out. But even this, the brick may match the walls or whatever, but drive down that neighborhood and look at those houses. We're looking for something like that, not exactly the same, but something similar. All these pictures that we've shown you, they're beautiful pictures, but they may not fit that neighborhood or that area. We're trying to find something that blends in, that fits, and it doesn't have to be exact at all. We've also made some exceptions, if I remember correctly. We had a senior living that came in, and they have a product that had some wood on it as well. And our requirements were 100% masonry, but we said, you know what? The way they designed it was designed to be at the front with the wood, and we made an exception for that. That was I think they did 100% on the back of it instead of the front that faced the road. Yeah, you could just go down the street and see these houses and see what some of them have stone, some of them have brick. It doesn't have to be all brick or all stone or anything like that, but you've got the answers right here in front of you. Whatever they did, we're looking for something similar, not exact, but something like it. And as beautiful as these products are, they don't fit.
Which one?
Yeah, so mixture of brick and stone. It's got color variation in the stone. It's got shutters. It's got looks like knee braces up there in the bullnose. Yeah, and I think even Taylor, one of the pictures you provided, you had some knee braces or something on the actual. Yeah, so I mean things like that to me just scream residential. So those types of things, and then even on this house, it's got the nice lanterns in the front. Ken mentioned having some nice lighting fixtures out there on them. But you can see, I think it's got looks like some soldier course and a jack arch over the windows. Again, I think, and this one to me, Taylor, this says. To me, this looks like the stone is being used as an accent versus a full material. Is that kind of how you see this? Like, as you mentioned, that stone's expensive, so you could really only use it as an accent. Is this an accent, or is this more than an accent?
No, that's pretty much an accent.
Okay.
Well, and again, what I'm taking away from all this is you want more material variation, you want gables, and you want some dormers.
I think that would certainly help the look, and then like on your product where you've got the braces on the roof, I think that looks good too. Like if you had them just like in your photo, you've got. If you've got 4 bump outs, you have the 2 on the end with the kind of the higher roof that's hipped, and then the 2 gables in the middle, but the ones that are hipped have the knee braces on them or whatever they were. Just again, it's creating a lot more visual character or visual interest on the product.
Got it.
And I think also what Taylor has heard, I would just add that I think I've also heard just that point about trying to really create that residential feel, having that character. and really setting a high bar, high standard for apartments.
Yes.
Well, let me ask you one last question, and you made mention of it with the senior housing. The buildings along the road, what do you guys think about the buildings along the road having quote unquote more character, and then buildings interior maybe not having as much, so we can pay for that character? Because every time you say the word character, it adds cost to the product. And so we have some simpler buildings that are blocked by the roads versus full character up along the roads. What do y'all think about that? Because again, I have to afford to be able to build this. And these aren't inexpensive.
Taylor, from a staff perspective, that's, you know, mostly what we are concerned about from a staff perspective. I'll let P&Z answer as well. But again, that's why we were wanting that corner building on there, so you literally couldn't even see into the site. And I'm still worried about that corner.
John, I can put so many trees. John, I could put so many trees there, you'll never even know what's there, but I'm not putting in a corner building. That is not part of our design. That is not a townhome style design. You want a 3-story apartment complex? I'll be glad to do it, but that's not what this is, and that's not what your neighbors said they wanted at the original P&Z meeting. But we'll plan a
but yeah,
you won't see the
from a staff perspective, our main concern is the buildings that you see going up and down Red Oak Road and Hickory Creek Drive. So if those buildings are blocking the rest of the buildings interior to the site, you know, we would see that as a positive. But I'll let P&Z talk more on what their opinions are.
I mean, I think I agree with that, because with buying a house or leasing an apartment, I mean, there are different levels. You may have some apartments, they have different views or different features, and of course they lease for more, and there are lesser ones. But what you see, like in this case, we're looking at the model home. So what you see is what's going to be appealing riding down the street.
Fair enough. Understood. And I would agree with that.
Yeah, Ben, you might be able to remind me. I can't remember what we did, but it was something about that senior living Arabella that we put in. I think it was, you know, masonry 100% on the front, but the back could be like 80% or something like that. But the back was actually facing the street, and the front of their buildings had wood on it, but it was character. It was really, it was the type of feel that they wanted these senior living people to have, assisted living or something. And so we made an exception. We said, look, you're going to put the full masonry on the back, and then put the front, you're going to have a little bit of the wood element that you were going to do. And it was aesthetically pleasing. It was nice. And it was the product that they designed for their residents.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ross, do you have enough to be dangerous?
I'm going to make this comment. So the gables, you know, add a whole lot more surface to the thing and up the percentage of brick that's required. Is there any chance that, and a lot of cities do this, that the masonry requirement is just up to the eave? In this case, they definitely have to include the gable ends also as part of that square footage calculation? Or can you stop it at the top plate line, which a lot of cities do? That would help.
I don't believe that's the intent of the ordinance, and I don't know that it gives any leeway on that. I think it's elevation period, not elevation.
It is a total of the building that's 80% though, not each elevation though. That's what I understand.
Yes, you're correct. I believe that's what the PD says. I'll have to double check that.
I was just thinking ahead is, that, you know, if you like gables over the hips, that, just causes another masonry problem. But not a problem, can't be fixed, so. Let me take another shot at it, Taylor.
Okay, well, and Ross, I also think they, you know, and guys, you can correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth. They would be willing to be maybe a little bit flexible if it looked good. But let's just make sure it looks good.
Yeah,
First,
yeah, and always remember, we're here as a recommending body, from a P&Z standpoint. I'm sorry, we're just looking at the actual PD. All structures must be minimum 80% brick stone exterior wall surface. So it does sound more like it's actually talking about the elevation versus building. Maybe.
Well, I guess the question is a gable a wall? I would argue it isn't. It's part of a roof.
Yeah, I guess you could make that interpretation.
Right.
I'll have to check our zoning ordinance to see if it defines gable, defines wall surface area.
It would just give us a little more latitude in being able to mix up the materials and designs.
Yeah. Well, I think we've heard from P&Z, but P&Z, correct me if I'm wrong, is, I mean, y'all are willing to be flexible on that number. I think someone said they didn't want to see it plummet to like 30 or 40%, but you know, if what gives them a better design they feel good about, and it's less than 80%, sounds like they have an open mind.
right.
But as Taylor said, let's make it look good and go from there, right?
Yeah.
We're going to do our best. We really, I mean, guys, our goal is to make something you guys are going to like. Don't get me wrong. And yes, I'm pushing back, but I have to push back so I can fully understand what y'all want. And that's all we're trying to do. So I think we have enough direction to take another stab at it. And you know, what we'll probably do is get some sketches done, and you know, what I'd like to do is get them to Brian and have Brian give them to y'all and get some comments back, because I have to have all this 100% done by January 8th in order to make February P&Z. And while that February sounds a long way away, January 8th is not.
It's not.
So we have a lot of work to do. But
Yep. Taylor, I appreciate you working with us and taking in our comments. I do want you to know why we're taking this so seriously is because this is the only spot in the city that is undeveloped apartment zone land. So it's kind of just a big one shot that we have, which is why we're taking it so seriously, and making sure that we're all on the same page and we're getting a very good understanding of what they're going to look like when they're actually constructed, and getting a lot of input. So I just wanted you to understand that from our side of the fence.
I do.
All right.
Okay, guys.
Time to eat.
Yes. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time this evening. Really
Thank
do.
you, everybody.
All right.
How do you get out of here?
Thanks.
Done, Larry? All right.
Close the meeting.
Just say the time is, or I guess do we need to vote to close it?
Not really.
Yeah.
After it works.
Time is 8:40 p.m. and I hereby dismiss this meeting of the.
Yeah, adjourned at 8:40.
Adjourn this.
All right, everybody.